Okay, so this is for the Q1 credit recovery assignment, the first two sections. The first section is on midpoint formula. The first thing you need to know is what that formula is. So this formula is when you add x1 and x2 divided by 2, and then add y1 and y2 and divide it by 2. This finds the center of a segment. So if we're given a two coordinates for the endpoint of a segment, we simply substitute them in. Remember, each coordinate is xy. You can choose which one's 0.1 and 0.2. I'm going to have this one be 0.1 and this one be 0.2. So 0.1, 0.2. I'm going to add my x's. So 4 plus 10 divided by 2. This is going to be a midpoint, so my answer needs to be as a coordinate. 7 plus 3 would be my two y values divided by 2. I'm going to keep that going, so I have 14 divided by 2 because 4 plus 10 is 14. 7 plus 3 is 10. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. 10 divided by 2 is 5. It's okay if you get like a 0.5 or something like that. That's normal with midpoint, but that's my final answer. Parentheses and comma necessary. The next section is on the distance formula. So again, you need to know what your distance formula is. This can be written in multiple different ways. I'm going to write it with my y's first, but you can do x's or y's first as long as you stay consistent. And again, we're going to deal with y2 and y1 and x2 and x1. So remember, every point's an x and a y. I'm going to have this be 0.1 and this be 0.2. So to substitute everything into my formula, I want y2, so 0 minus y1, which is 6 squared, plus, again, substituting into my formula. Because I started, remember, at 0.2, you have to be consistent, so negative 6 minus negative 8. A lot of people mess that up sometimes. Be careful. It's a minus and then a negative 8. So those will turn into a positive. So now I have the square root of negative 6. 0 minus 6 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 8 is positive 2. And again, another thing to be careful with, negative 6 squared is a positive 36. So when we keep that going, we have 36 plus 4. Then we end up with the square root of 40. Which we would at this point use our calculator to do the square root of 40. And that's going to give you a decimal of approximately 6.32455, more decimals. It says nearest tenth. Oops, right there. So I'm going to round that to about 6.3. And that's how to do the first two sections. The video is going to continue on, but you could pause it here and try those first two sections now. So sections 3, 4, and 5. So for slope, we have to remember that to find the slope of a line, we need to get it in the form y equals mx plus b, m being the slope. So anytime they're going to ask a question about slope, we first need to know that we need it in simplest form, or excuse me, standard form for slope-intercept. So we have 2y is equal to negative 2x minus 8 because I subtracted 2x from both sides. I'm now going to divide everything by 2. So I'm going to get y equals negative x minus 4. So I know right now from this that my slope is negative 1, the slope of the given line. They want a slope of a line perpendicular. Here's where you need to remember that parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have a negative reciprocal slope. So what that means is if they had asked for parallel, I would just write the same number, negative 1. For a negative reciprocal slope, let's say for an example, I have 3 over 2. The negative reciprocal means to change the sign and flip the numbers. In this case, for a negative 1, it turns into a positive 1, and then a 1 over 1 just switches to a 1. So positive 1 is your negative reciprocal for that one. And again, parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slope. Continuing with that idea, they want us to compare two. So again, we need them in y equals mx plus b form. Sometimes some are given to you that way, some aren't, but it's all about the slope. So here I have my slope of 1/2. In this other equation, I'm going to have to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. I'll get 2y is equal to negative 4x plus 10. And then I'll divide everything by 2. Leaving me with y equals negative 2x plus 5. So my slope here is 2. So the two numbers I'm comparing are 1/2 and negative 2. Sometimes it makes it easier to look at the whole number over 1 as a reminder. These are opposite signs and they're reciprocals of one another. So these are perpendicular because they're negative reciprocal. Again, if this was the same Slope, they would be parallel. If they were identical equations, it would be same line. And if it isn't any of those, it's neither parallel nor perpendicular. The next section, they want an equation of a line that passes through this point and is parallel to this line. So again, I need to start with slope. So I'm going to get this by itself I'm subtracting x from both sides. So I know that the slope of the line here is -1. I'm going to make an equation of a new line. So I'm going to make a new y equals mx plus b equation. I know that the x and y have to substitute in. I don't know my value of b, but I do know my slope. I need my slope to be parallel to this slope, so I'm going to use the same slope. If it were asking for perpendicular instead, I would use a negative reciprocal slope. So I have a equals, this is going to make this a positive 4 plus b, subtract 4 from both sides. So I have 4 equal to b. Now that I have this piece of information and the slope, I can say that the equation is y equals negative x plus 4. And that would be my final answer. Last section of this is section 6. So for this one, it's simply a circle equation. So we have this as our standard form of a circle equation. H and K are the center of the circle, so we find that by finding the center of the circle. And then R stands for radius, so remember you can just count from the center to the outside. So in this circumstance, my center is located at 6, 7, and my radius is 2. Now that I have that information, I substitute those values in. So x minus 6 squared plus y minus 7 squared is equal to 4 squared, or excuse me, 2 squared, which is 4. And that's how you do circle equations. So that is it for the Quarter 1 credit recovery. Let me know if you need help.